What is going on, everybody? Welcome into another edition of the Daily Energy Newsbeat Stand-Up here on this gorgeous Tuesday, March 21st, 2023. As always, I'm your humble correspondent, Michael Tanner, coming to you from an undisclosed location here in Dallas, Texas, joined by the executive producer of the show, the purveyor of the show, and the director and publisher of the world's greatest website, EnergyNewsbeat.com, Stuart Turley. My man, how we doing today?
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, and I'm glad to be back at work.
Yes, you are. It's been a little bit cold here in the DFW Midwest area, so I hope everybody who's tuning in from this is staying warm and around the country. If you're listening to this, it probably means the bank run didn't happen. So when we know we were talking about that yesterday, so we all survived, thank goodness. We've got a busy week coming up with a lot of crazy stuff. Specifically for today, Stu has a great show for us lined up and some pretty banger articles picked out. First one, despite liberal media's wishful thinking, China just keeps pumping out more and more carbon dioxide. I mean, it's pretty obvious China is the number one leader in emissions, but Stu will cover really exactly what's going on there. Next, we dive over to David Blackman's Substack for Monday's Energy Absurdity. You won't believe who's getting blamed for blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline now. As you can hear Stu laughing, there's just some hilarious stuff in here. So we will go over and listen to a random guy from Substack. Next, coal returns to the China-Pakistan economic corridor. Really talking about make coal great again. I mean, this is a huge deal that Stu will talk about. The next two articles have to do with rig counts. We added the most gas rigs last week since December 2026. And then also we raised the offshore rig count from 14 to 17, which is, offshore rigs a little bit more pricey than an onshore rig. So
A little
good
bit.
to see them moving. And then finally, more than 3,000 acres of New Mexico public land is being sold for oil and gas amid protests. This is in specifically Lee and Eddy County, which are some extremely profitable counties for oil and gas production. So I bet there will be a sale. He will kick it over to me. I will quickly cover what's going on in the oil and gas markets. Overall markets actually up today despite some bank uncertainty. Crude oil currently trading 67.73. Nat gas not having as good of a time, down to $2.22, lowest since we've seen it since I think February 2021. So I will cover all of that and a bag of chips, guys. But first, check us out. World's greatest website, www.energynewsbeat.com. Check us out, dashboard.energynewsbeat.com. That's our data and news combo app. We are hard at work at V2. All of the stories we are about to cover are courtesy via the link below or the description below. So take a look. There should be timestamps there. We are working on making them actually clickable. So if you want to just go ahead and click forward and not hear our rambling, you can hear that. Again, that's www.energynewsbeat.com. Stu, I'm out of breath. Where do you want to begin?
All right, we're going to distribute, despite liberal media wishful thinking, China just keeps pumping out more carbon dioxide. Michael, this article is absolutely a hoot, as we say, and it is a timeline of liberal thinking about the United States spending more and more money to get rid of greenhouse gases. And then all of a sudden, China is say they're going green, but they ain't. But let me give you some headlines here. Here's a brief history of China going green. In the late 1990s, U.S. stabilized its carbon dioxide at a bit below 6 billion tons a year. And China began a massive increase in its emissions in 2004. China surpassed the U.S. and kept climbing. By 2010, they'd reached 10 billion tons annually, where the U.S. was down to 5.5. Rutro, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, it's been fairly clear to anybody with a brain that China has been leading the world in emissions since the early 2000s. And
Right.
It's been clear to anybody that if you're going to curtail world emissions, you have to do with China. And
Right.
making emissions here at home that just put poor folks and raises their energy prices is not the solution. So this is just,
No.
in fact, I mean, this is in fact exactly what's been happening. People are just now waking up to it.
Well, it's even worse than that. It goes on further in the article, and it says, and I saw this last week, a fairly well-known Democrat, I don't want to misspeak, but that Democrat said, oh, we need to catch up to China in the green energy. This is almost the same quote that was done in Obama's time period. Germany and China are beating the U.S. energy efficiency.
Yeah.
The liberal website Mashable declared in its climate change in 2016. Who has energy crises going on really, really bad right now? Germany and China. China is putting in more coal than anybody else on the planet. So anyway,
yeah,
I just thought
well,
that
we will cover China coal here very quickly, but I think we need to check out Monday's energy absurdity of the day.
We're off and running on this one. Michael, David Blackman, got to give a shout out for David Blackman. He is a Forbes contributing author. He's one of our podcasters in the Sandstone Media Group, and his energy questions got an all-star lineup all the time. So, and he's also on the energy transition. This one, Michael, is Monday's energy absurdity of the day. You won't believe who's getting blamed for blowing up Nord Stream now. You and I had so much fun talking about some random guy on Substack getting that, it's either Russia or the US blowing it up. And that one guy that said, they had to stop in Norway and get thing if it was the US. This guy is saying that let me get in here. The honor over the weekend went to the Wall Street Journal, Michael, that published the piece saying that Nord Stream 1 and 2 were six people tourists who rented a yacht to tour the Black Sea, and they never got within 22 miles of where the bombs went off. Now,
so the title from the Wall Street Journal, guys, if you're listening, is 6 mysterious passengers went on a 2-week cruise, then disappeared. Not long after, the Nord Stream pipeline exploded. Were they behind the plot? That's the actual headline on the Wall Street Journal. That's like saying Stu left his house. 3 hours later, a boat drove across, the lake. Somebody died. Was Stu to blame? It's like, I mean, like literally, it's just unbelievable, the connection. You could write this article about anything.
Oh, absolutely. And so instead of going for a 3-hour cruise, all they had to do is put Gilligan and Skipper on that bad dog. They went out for a 3-week cruise. I mean, I could almost hear that. And then a response to David Blackman's Substack article was fabulous. A very well-to-do diver who's very knowledgeable responded. And he said, if even divers went halfway, they would need so much oxygen in order to come back up, they wouldn't have the air tanks. And he said only people with Navy SEAL at the end of their job title would be able to do this. So Russia would have people, United States would have people, but 6 people going on a 3-hour cruise with Gilligan and Skipper would never be able to even pull it off. And they never got within 26 miles. Isn't that fun?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, little fun fact, I'm a certified scuba diver, and I have a nitrix, or they call it nitrox, but they call it nitrox. I have that certification and have used it twice. Holy smokes, it's nice. Holy smokes, it's nice. Yeah. It's like a drug, because it's like enriched oxygen, and you're just like, ooh, it's like taking a hit of one of those laughing guns.
Right, but you better like come up slowly. You
100%.
You only got an X number of minutes at the bottom, and then you 100%. Have a slow ascent coming out.
100%.
All right, let's go to the next one here. But it was really tickled. Subscribe to our Substack, the Energy Newsbeat Substack, but also David Blackman's Substack, the Energy Absurdity Day. Anyway, shout out to David for making my day. All right, let's go to the next one. Coal returns to China-Pakistan economic corridor. This is amazing because now China has been saying over the last several years that they're not going to build any more coal plants outside of the China. However, they are contracted now with Pakistan because Pakistan has some really serious natural gas problems. You and I talked about those natural gas where the kids were carrying balloons over their head in order to bring natural gas home. I talked to Osama Rainier, and his podcast is coming out probably tomorrow or the next day. Pakistan's got 70% inflation, and they missed an LNG tanker that came in, and so they have zero natural gas. So lots of stuff in there. So now you got China, who is now dropping in its 62 billion bilateral infrastructure and connectivity project between China and Pakistan in the Gwadar Free Zone, which is a free zone between the China and Pakistan for economic development and those kind of things. So China is pretty much going to pay for the power plant, and then they're going to charge the snot out of it for the Pakistan folks.
Yeah.
And it was approved in 2017.
Yeah. I mean, China truly is make coal great again. But I mean, as we're seeing with Xi Jinping, who's now currently meeting with Vladimir Putin, talking about a strong relationship. You know, you've mentioned a bunch of the geopolitical things going on in China. They truly are trying to establish themselves as the world's #1 leader. And I think they're trying to do that through energy. It's clear they're trying to do that through controlling the world's energy. They've done that by acquiring all the mines. They're now, for the renewables and lithium and all that jazz. They're doing that with shoring up their coal routes. They're the biggest buyer of crude oil right now. They know what they're doing.
They do. And then Secretary Blinken said today that China wants to negotiate a Russia-Ukraine settlement. And he went nuts on Sunday's TV. He basically said anything China negotiates won't be good. And we won't adhere to it. I'm like, China negotiate peace and we're not going to align with it? What are you going to do? Attack Russia? I mean, it didn't make any sense. So, okay, here we go. Let's go to the next one here. U.S. drillers add the most rig count, rose 8 to 754 in the week of March 17th. Do you remember in COVID, Michael, we were down to, I think, 350. On the rig count. So it is nice that it's back up to 754.
Yes.
But Energy Trader said we were down to 62 and some change, I think, today.
Wasn't good. Well, I think it's the difference. I think it's an interesting facet. You see gas rigs up to their highest point since 2018, and we're currently looking at a $2.24 natural gas price. So the real question is, how many of those gas rigs are going to end up getting completed? Well, I think what you're going to see is a huge DUC count increase. If specifically you're seeing an increase in gas rigs or have been, those gas rigs are not getting completed. Trust me.
But it's not necessarily a bad thing because we stripped out almost all of the DUCs. We had like 8,000 DUCs. And then we went, I'm serious.
What good does a duck do?
Quack.
Ducks are not that they're net negatives, but I mean, they're worthless, not worthless. No. That's a wrong thing to say. Trust me, I've been dealing with ducks way too much in my day job for the past couple of weeks. So spare me a little bit. We could go on for this, but
we could use a few ducks in the warehouse. So,
well, I get,
but all right, let's go to the next one here. U.S. raises offshore rig count. Now, offshore is something that's a hair different. Those are just animals to go out there. And there was from Saipan, a brand new jackup rig is going over to China. That's a completely separate article, but China's dropping one out right now and it just bought it from Saipan. However, the number of active rigs in Canada went down by 16 to 207. Thought that was pretty interesting as well too. So Baker Hughes has always done a great job on the rig counts.
Yeah, no, they really have. It's good to see offshore rigs crank a little bit. Those cycles are different though. Those are 6 to 8 to 12-month projects. I mean, it's those get designed and planned differently. So, but it's good
absolutely.
to see those. Good to see them get cranked out.
Oh, you bet. Now, let's go to the next one and the last one for me here. And out in the Permian, that's a whole different animal out there. That's where you get more than 3,000 acres of New Mexico public land being sold for oil and gas amid protests.
Ew.
People protest? It's actually, in Cheyenne County, was offered the sale on 24 parcels, records show. BLM reported, not the Bureau of Land Management, we must, separate that out, reported on March 17th that it found oil and gas extraction on the nominated parcels of land and would not significantly impact the environment.
Yeah, I saw this. They're looking to drill 19 horizontal wells, 3.2 million barrel, and 18 billion cubic feet of total recoverable oil and gas. That works out to be about 160,000 barrels per horizontal well. So that probably pays, assuming hopefully they're 1 mile laterals. It'll be interesting to see if they're 2 mile laterals. Ugh, that's not great, but
I wonder what the takeaway is in that county. I'll have to go look.
I'd be very interested to know if they're able to sell all of that 18 billion cubic feet. I bet you only a quarter of that you'll be able to get into sales. So, but hey, I mean, Eddy and Lee County, they're some of the most profitable counties in New Mexico. So of course this study found that it wouldn't impact the environment because they were like, we could use the cash. They're trying to drill 19 wells.
Oh yeah. Well, the state's got to pay for the governor's fighting legal battle to keep her governorship.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, I'm done. That was it. That was a whirlwind around there. I had a few more comments, but I'm going to keep us from not being banned on the internet.
Good. Yes, we need to stay up on everything. I'm looking at how the finance markets did today. S&P 500 on the U.S. side was up about 0.8 of a percentage point. NASDAQ trades up 0.3 of a percentage points. Really sort of on the fallout from UBS buying Credit Suisse for a little over $3.25 billion. I don't think the fallout in the United States necessarily is as I don't think we've seen the worst of it yet here in the United States. I think we have this Fed meeting that's upcoming on Wednesday in which we will discover, if they do go another 50 basis points, we could run into another issue like SVB did, considering the fact that they were long treasury bonds. So it's going to be interesting to see how that decision plays out, how that's impacting crude oil. Again, we will see as the dollar rises in value, oil prices will fall. Remember, we have an inverse relationship between the two. So remember that as you track the dollar and as we hear Fed Chair Jerome Powell's comments on Wednesday. Trust me, on our show that you will hear really on Thursday, we will cover all of the fallout from that. Speaking about crude oil, we're trading about 67.75 as we record this, about 624 actually here on the 20th. We're up about 1% today. We're actually down a little bit early in the trading session due to some of the early weakness in the stock market, if only because we saw a reversal of the dollar. And again, I think there's this contrast between, do we check out the fundamentals? And yes, look like there's going to be more demand than not. We saw, as we covered yesterday, Goldman Sachs came out, revised their $100 oil segment. We're so sorry for Stu that he just not secured a full-time job. They decided to go in another direction with that job. Speaking of natural gas, though, $2.24 for natural gas. Again, the story on nat gas intel, Stu, is it's just weather related. We got warmer weather around the corner. Stocks are only supposed to have a 67 BCF draw this Thursday, which is about 50% below yearly averages for this time. So not good in terms of the amount of supply and demand. So that's one market where the supply and demand is reigning supreme right now. Obviously, Freeport's done nothing to continue to get all of this LNG outward. So, as much of the crisis is happening over in Europe, we are seeing still some plentiful stuff abroad. And that's really caused, I think, M&A has really slowed down in the marketplace right now. You're not probably going to see as many deals happen, especially at this pricing environment, if only because people feel like they missed their opportunity. You could have sold last year for 126, and now you're sitting here and,
Right.
You're at 67, 220. Time flies when you're having fun, I guess.
Oh, you bet. I would not have seen these prices.
No. So I don't think anybody would have. So I didn't. So I can't say I'm to blame. But you got anything else, Stu?
Nah, we're going to have a wild week. Buckle up, as we say.
Buckle up for Wednesday, Thursday. Those Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we may have to record. I know we've been doing a weekly recap on Fridays. We may have to record a special show if we see some sort of bank run going on. So we will keep you informed. But with that, guys, we're going to let you get out of here, get back to work, finish up day. We appreciate you checking us out. World's greatest energy podcast. Check us out, www.energynewsbeat.com. For Stuart Turley, I'm Michael Tanner. See you tomorrow, folks.